Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever looked at a social movement and wondered why one succeeds in building something lasting while another just collapses into chaos? Well, today we're diving into a really powerful framework that explains just that. It's all about what separates success from failure. Right. Let's get straight to the heart of it with this question. Why do some movements create real, positive change, while others just fizzle out? Or worse, become the very thing they were fighting against? What's the secret sauce? What's that invisible thing that makes all the difference? This quote right here is the key to everything we're going to talk about. Think of it as the ultimate test, a movement's ability to control itself, its own power, its own words, its own actions. That is what ultimately decides its fate. So, how do you even begin to build a movement that can regulate itself? Well, it all starts with a foundation. And these are the principles that honestly often get ignored when everyone's swept up in that first wave of excitement. Okay, first things first, you have to understand this distinction. Emotion, that's your fuel. It's what gets people fired up and into the streets. But a movement running only on emotion, it's like a car that's all accelerator and no steering wheel. Sure, it's fast and powerful, but you're heading straight for a wall. Politics, the hard stuff, is what governs. When feeling completely takes over the job of decision-making, you can bet that chaos is going to win every time. And this leads us to something so critical. Your words are never just words. The language a movement chooses is like its operating system. It sets the rules, it creates permissions, and it draws the moral lines in the sand that people will or will not cross. And you can see where this is going, right? The danger is very real. When the language gets too vague or too heated, it's not just talk anymore. It's a green light for actions the leaders might never have wanted. It just squeezes out all the room for nuance and debate, and pretty soon you've got unchecked actions happening on the ground. So here's the bottom line. Your methods really matter. They're not neutral. You can't use chaos and violence and expect to build a society that's orderly and peaceful. It just doesn't work that way. The tools you pick up along the way will absolutely reshape your final goal, no matter how good your intentions were at the start. All right, so let's say the movement has some momentum. It's growing. This is when two really dangerous forces almost always show up: chaos and new, competing centers of power. And how a movement handles these two is, frankly, a matter of survival. It's so tempting to think of chaos as, a useful tool, a way to shake things up, right? But the framework we're looking at is crystal clear on this point. Chaos is never, ever neutral. And this chart just lays it all out. People might think chaos is a tool, but in reality, it's a threat. They might see it as a passing phase, but really, it's a magnet for predators, for people who thrive on instability. And it's definitely not creative. It systematically destroys the moderate voices you need for any kind of stable, good outcome. Always remember this. Chaos creates its own winners, and they're almost never the good guys who started the movement. So while all this is happening, new power centers pop up. Could be a charismatic speaker, an influencer, maybe an armed group. The rule here is absolute. You have to bring that new power under the control of the movement's main structure immediately. If you wait, it's going to grow, and it will eventually take over the entire cause for its own purposes. So, how do you actually stay in control? Well, every single tactic needs to have what you could call an escalation brake. Before you ramp anything up, a protest, a slogan, whatever, you better be able to answer 3 questions. 1, under what conditions do we use this? 2, what are the absolute limits? And 3, what's our exact path to back out of this? Because let's be real, if you can't stop a process, you don't control it, period. And that brings us to our last set of principles. This is where we shift our focus from the heat of the moment to playing the long game, to actually building something that can last. It's so easy to get fixated on that one big, dramatic moment, right? The seizing of power. That's the scene that gets into the movies. But here's the thing. Real, lasting success has nothing to do with that one moment. It's all about legitimacy. And you can't seize legitimacy. You have to earn it. It's built slowly, piece by piece, through actions people can count on. It's the true foundation. And it's so fragile it can be shattered in an instant. Okay, here's a big one, a classic problem. A lot of movements think that to look strong and unified, they have to crush any and all internal criticism. It feels strong, doesn't it? But is it really? Well, this framework argues the complete opposite. Internal criticism isn't a weakness, it's your most important security system. It's what stops you from walking right off a cliff because of some disastrous blind spot. It protects you from outsiders who want to exploit your flaws. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's the movement's immune system. And this really gets to the why of it all. At the end of the day, the goal isn't just to win. The number one asset you have to protect at all cost is society itself. Why? Because governments can be rebuilt. Institutions can be reformed. But a truly broken, fractured society, that can take generations to heal, if it ever does. So after going through all of this, from laying the foundation to playing the long game, let's bring it right back to that one core idea we started with. This is what it all boils down to. Self-regulation isn't just some boring administrative task. It is the fundamental difference between a movement that actually achieves its goals and one that just becomes a weapon in somebody else's hands.
So this isn't just some historical exercise. This is a lens, a really powerful tool you can use. So the final question isn't for me, it's for you. When you look at the movements shaping our world right now, how can you use these principles to make sense of what's really going on?